Okay, given an input stream of n characters consisting only of small case alphabets, the task is to find the first non-repeating character each time a character is inserted to the stream. If no non-repeating element is found, print -1. Okay, so if we have A, B, C, E, D, C, and D, then our answer is going to be E is our first non-recurring character. We'll go ahead and put one more non-recurring just on the end there for an edge case. All right, so what we're going to do, since we know and have been given that it's only small case alphabets, then we can you can use an array for this since we know the size of our data. So what we can do is have an array, and at the indexes, we can actually store kind of the character's ASCII value as our index, but what we can do is we can subtract it from 97. So 97 is lowercase a, so 97 minus a would put us here at 0. So a would be at the 0, and we would actually, instead of writing an a, we would actually have a counter. So we saw a first, so now it's 1. And then we would go through again and we see another A. So we look in here, and yes, at that spot, it is not null. So we want to change it to a -1 because we know we've already seen it. And then we would go to, and our count right now would be at, we've counted, it would be at 2. So then we see the B. B has not been seen before. So it would be 98 minus B. So we'd go to the 1, and the B would be here, except we're going to put a count. So we saw that second. And then we increase count. And we go to the C. And we haven't seen C yet. So it's going to presumably be in this index, and count is 3. We increase count. And then we look at the E, and we haven't seen that before. So E is going to go here, and our count is 4. So we'll put our count there. We'll increase our count and see the D. We haven't seen a D before, so it gets put in at 5. Count gets increased to 6. And now we are at C. So we have seen C before, so that gets changed to -1. Then we go to a D, and we've seen D before, so that gets changed to a -1. And then we go to F, and F would be here, and that count is 6. And then we've finished our stream. And then what we can do is we can go through our array and check which value for each of the indexes is the lowest without being less than 0 or without being less than 1. So it would go through, and yes, so B would be our answer. And if we go through, we would see we're disregarding the A because it's -1. We'd get to the B, and we would save that in some sort of variable. And we would also want to keep track of the count. And then when we compare them, we would look and we'd say, okay, the character is going to be B. We would just be converting that index back into its character. And then the count would be 2. And then we get to the E, and that's -1, so we would disregard it. We would look at the, sorry, that was C. We'd look at the D, and that's -1, so we'd disregard it. Then we'd get to the E, and that's a 4, but 4 is bigger than 2, so we disregard it. Then we get to the F, and it's a 6, and that is bigger than the 2, so we disregard that. So we would know that our first non-recurring character is B. And this is going to have a complexity of O of 2n. We essentially have to go through the entire stream, and then we have to go through the array. So actually, it's not even quite 2n because it's only going to be 26. So that's kind of a constant. So really, I think we can just call it O of n. And then because the 26 is always going to just be that short amount that we have to go through. So that's the time complexity, and then the space of complexity is pretty negligible because we've made an additional array of only 26 items. So you could call it O of 26 or O of n if you wanted to really be in a worst case mood, but it can only go to 26. All right, so what we're going to do is go ahead and code this up. So let's make some space. Okay, so first and foremost, we've got our function. We're just going to have it print out the results. We're going to find that first non-recurring character. And we're going to go ahead and have our input stream be an array so that it's going to process. So char at array. Okay. So it's going to go in. First things first, let's go ahead and make sure our array isn't null. So if 0, then we'll throw an exception. And put it with some sort of message. No. Okay, so we don't have any input else. We're going to go into our algorithm. Okay, so first what we want to do is make our 26 character array. Just call it count array. Okay, and then we also need to have our counter that we were keeping track of so we know the order in which we see things. We can start that at 1. And then what we want to do first is we looped through this stream of data. So we'll loop through this array. Okay, and then what we're going to do, so if count array at, and this is where we want to access the correct index when we take into account what we're converting the character's ASCII value into the index. So if it's A, it's going to be at index 0. So we subtract the 97, which is our small a, that's kind of the starting off point. If it equals 0, then we know we haven't seen it yet. So we go in and we say count array at that A location, which is at 0 or, okay, and that's going to equal count. And then we need to increase count for the next guy. Else, we've already seen it, and we need to change it to -1. So else count array at array of I minus 97 equals -1. Okay. So we've put everything into the array now. And now we just need to go through and process that. So we do need to keep track of the first non-recurring number. We'll just call it first num, and we'll start that, and it can be equal to count because that's the highest number that can possibly be in there. And then we will do our the first character that's going to correlate with that index, and we'll start that at null, and then we can go in, and our loop is only going to be 26 characters. So int I equals 0, I is less than, we can say either count array at length, or we can say less than 26 because we know that's the biggest size, and then I plus plus. Okay, so within that, if first num is greater than count array at I, then we know that we found a lower number than that, so this is potentially our first recurring. We also need to make sure that we are not counting anything that's less than 0. So we need to make sure that count array is greater at I is greater than 0. That has to be a condition that is also met. So if those things happen, then we know we have a new first number, and that is going to equal our count array at I. And we want to also store the correlating character with that. So our first char is going to equal the character of that index. So we'll just do the reverse and add 97 to that, cast it as a character, as a char, and then that should take care of that. And this will loop through the entire array and test each one, and at the end we should be left with our smallest number that's greater than 0 and its corresponding character. So if the first, we can say if first char equals null, then we know that we never found a first recurring character. So we can just print console.write no non-recurring characters, or actually the directions specifically said to print -1. So we will just print -1 in that situation. And then if otherwise we did find something, and we can print our first char. Okay, so that should take care of everything. Let's go ahead and walk through this and test it out. Okay. A little bit more room, and so make this a little bigger to go through it. Okay. So we're going to want to keep track of our array. So we have count array, and we have I and count and I. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bigger here. So that we can see it a little bit easier. Okay. And so we'll go in, and first we look, is array.length equal to 0? It's not. Otherwise, int count array equals a new array. So we have our new count array right here. And we can kind of just draw that. We won't have all of the letters represented, so we should be okay with space. Okay, and then we go in and count starts at 1. We get into our for loop, I equals 0, and I is less than array.length, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we'll just make a little note that that's a 9. And then we'll go on in. If count array at array I minus 97, so array at I all right, count array at array of I, which here it's A minus 97 is going to be 0. And it is equal to 0 right now. So we go in and we say count array at, in this case, 0 equals count. So count is 1. Okay, so that's a 1. Count plus plus is 2. We don't go into the else, so I plus plus, I is now 1. 1 is less than 9. If count array at array I, which we're here, so it would be 0. If it's equal to 0, which it does not, it's equal to 1, then we go in into our else, and then count array at that location becomes a negative 1. And then I plus plus, I is now 2. Okay, and 2 is less than 9. So if count array at array of I, which is 2, so we're here on the B, minus 97, so that would be our position 1 because B is a 98. If it equals 0, which it does, we want to add count to that location. Count is 2, and then count plus plus becomes 3. And then we loop through, I plus plus, I is now 3. And we go up here and we say 3 is less than 9. It is, so we go in and we say if count array at array at I, which is C minus 97 equals 0, and it does because that's position 2, then count array at that position equals count. Count is 3. So we make that a 3. Count plus plus. So count is now 4. And then I plus plus. And we get to E. So if I is less than array.length and I is 4, 4 is less than 9. So we go in if count array at I, which is E minus 97 equals 0. Which here is where E goes in the number 4 slot here. And it does equal 0, so we add our count, which is 4. And then count plus plus, so count is now 5. And then we go in I plus plus, and it becomes 5. So now we're here at D. We go in and I is 5, 5 is less than 9, so we go into here if count array at D minus 97 equals 0, and our D is right here in position 3. So it does equal 0, so we go in and we add count, and then count plus plus. We come out of there, I becomes 6, I plus plus. 6 is less than 9. So we keep going, and now we're at C. If count array at C minus 97 is that, and it's a 3, so it does not equal 0, so we skip that. We go to the else, and we change that to negative 1. Okay, and then we loop through I plus plus, and 7 is less than 9. So we go in, and we're looking at this D. If count array at D, which is right here at the number 3 slot, is equal to 0. It's not, so we skip that, else it becomes -1. So that becomes -1. And then we're out of that, and we go I++. 8 is less than 9, so we keep going. If count array at f minus 97 equals count, we don't have anything in there, so we add that, and count is 6. And then I++, I is 9. 9 is less than 9, so we get out of our for loop, and now we come in, and we have first num, we have first char, and that's all I think we need to keep track of. Okay, so first num starts at count. Count is 6, and our first char starts at a null. Okay, so we go in and we say if first num, which is 6, is greater than array, oh, we should keep track of I too. So I starts at 0. So if first num is greater than count array at I, which is -1, and count array at I is greater than 0. Well, it's not greater than 0, so we do not go into that. And then I++, and we go again. If first num is greater than count array at I, 2, okay, and first num is greater than 2, so first num equals count array at I, which is 2, and then first char equals I plus 97, so 1 plus 97 is 98, 2 char, so we know that that's a B, and then I++, I is now 2, and we go through and we say if 2 is greater than, no, sorry. If first num, which is 2, is greater than count array and count array is greater than 0, which it's not, so we don't do anything. And then I++, is 3, 3 is less than 26. So we go up here and we say if first num, which is 2, is greater than count array at 3, which it's -1, it's greater than, but it's not greater than 0, so we don't go into the if. And then I++, 4 is less than 26. We go up here and we say is first num, which is 2, greater than count array at I, which is 4. It's not greater than, so we don't have a new first num. And then we go in I++, I is now 5, 5 is less than 26. And we come in and we say is first num greater than count array at I, which it is not greater than. So we do not go into that for loop, or we do not go into that if statement. And then I++, I is now 6, 6 is less than 26. And what will happen if we keep going through the 26, it's going to check all these other elements that we didn't load for just the sake of saving time, and it will discover that all of them are equal to 0. So we would never hit this condition. And so what we will be, our output is going to be, let's see, if first char equals null, which it doesn't, it equals B. So otherwise we go to console.write first char, which is B. Okay, and that should do it. And again, it is a complexity of O and N because we have to process the entire stream before we can solve this. And the space complexity is very negligible because we just made an array of 26 items. And that should do it.